Hi, this is Bob from Turbot. If you're looking for a quick demo of Turbot Guardrails features, you're in the right spot. In this video, we're going to show how you can sync GCP resources right into your ServiceNow CMDB, leveraging Turbot Guardrails. To get started, in your Turbot Guardrails environment, if you have not already done so, you want to associate your ServiceNow instance with your Turbot Guardrails workspace. So you get credentials out of your ServiceNow instance, you associate them here along with your instance URL and an application. So an application could be one that you create specifically for Turbot Guardrails or one that you already have existing today. So in my example, I already have a Turbot Guardrails application. I already have done some syncs for some other cloud providers with Amazon and Azure. In this demo, I'm going to show how to start syncing your GCP resources. And to start with, I'm going to use the Google Storage bucket as a starting point. So within your Guardrails environment, you can browse your policies for GCP. In this case, I'm going to use storage. And so I'm going to go to my storage policies, my buckets, and along with my other guardrail policies, so managing access controls, encryption, labeling, managing your IAM policy bindings, you also have ServiceNow policies that you can click into. And here is where you're going to define what your table is going to be in ServiceNow CMDB for Google Storage buckets. So what's the table name? How is it extending off existing CI tables? You're also going to then configure what the records will look like in ServiceNow. But simply, I'm going to lean into the defaults that we have, and then I'll show you how to edit those configurations in case you want to handle any nuances about your CI data classifications you can handle within these policies. So here, I'm first going to start creating and managing a table from Guardrails to ServiceNow. And specifically for the Google Storage bucket, I have a policy here to manage the table. And I have settings here that are in skip, but I'm going to have Turbot enforce configure. This is going to look and feel very similar to your other guardrail policies for other type of controls that you set up. So I'm just going to hit update here. And now Turbot is going to start managing a ServiceNow table automatically in this application. And so if I go back here and hit refresh, I could see already that Turbot has enabled this GCP storage bucket, and we'll start syncing and managing this storage bucket moving forward. So if I end up changing different types of columns and data that I want in this table, Turbot will then manage that and update it moving forward. Now, again, this table could be brand new. It can be off an existing table, or it could be a table that extends off another table. So there's a lot of flexibility to work within your current CI classifications. So now I have my table set up. And if I'm looking at one of my GCP projects, and so here I have 3 storage buckets already set up in the environment. And so I want to take these resources and sync them in to that ServiceNow table. Now, that's just another policy within Turbot Guardrails. And so here underneath that ServiceNow configurations for storage buckets, I have another policy called configuration items, or CI. Right now it's set to skip, but if I change that to enforce sync, that's going to then start syncing those resources into that table and continuously syncing them moving forward, which I'll show in creates and updates and deletes. Now, not all the times do you want Turbot to maybe delete your resources out of ServiceNow. We do have an archival setting where you can manage a status on your resources. So in some cases, our customers will want to archive or change the status or availability of that resource to being terminated. Instead of being removed, it just has a different status in ServiceNow, which we also can handle. For simplicity, I'm just going to start with just a complete sync. So if something gets deleted, it also get out of GCP, it also get removed out of ServiceNow. And so here, I'm going to set this and I'm going to update this. So now this policy is going to start syncing these CIs into ServiceNow. So if I go back into my application here, I should see that the resources are going to be synced. So what I'll do is I'll refresh the page. And now we'll see those resources come through. So these three resources are now synced in with the data that I had selected to be part of that sync. So now moving forward, I've gotten my current state of my resources out of GCP. They're now being synced into ServiceNow. And for anything new or created, or if I make any changes, or if I make any deletions, Turbot's going to handle that automatically within seconds of any change. So let's see that in action. So if I go back to GCP here, and I go and create a bucket, and I'll label it similar to what I've done here. So if I do a Acme demo Turbot GCP 3 and make it 4, and I'll just use the defaults. Okay, great. So now this bucket is automatically created, and we're going to see this then get automatically created in your ServiceNow CMDB. So we'll go back into ServiceNow, wait a few seconds, I'll reload. All right, now that we're refreshing, we can see that the GCP bucket 4 is now synced in the ServiceNow, and it also captured all the labels that Turbot Guardrails automatically applied along with it. So I already had enforcement set up to automatically label the bucket, and so that enforcement and that data also came along with that sync. Now, updates would also be true here. That's automatically going to sync into your ServiceNow CMDB. So if I go back into my bucket here and I was to update a label, so let's say I added demo equals true and hit save. Okay. Now that label is also going to get synced into ServiceNow. And so if we go back, we'll give it a few seconds, we'll refresh, then we'll also see that this particular bucket will also have another tag associated to it. Okay, refresh the screen. And then we could see that quickly that that new key value pair is already added into ServiceNow that quickly. Now, all these changes that are being made are automatically captured in Turbot Guardrails. So if you're already familiar with Guardrails, all the history of change is managed within the product. And so, for example, if I was to go and search for that bucket, so that Acme demo Turbot GCP 4, hit search. Now that's also recorded into your Turbot Guardrails environment. You could see the overlay of controls, so ServiceNow being one of them and how well the sync is working. So at any point in time, you can see the history of the sync and also whether or not the sync is active or if it has any errors. You can see that. And then as well as the activity. And so as folks are making changes in GCP, those are being recorded in Turbot Guardrails. So if you needed to see when that change was made and what exactly was the diff, you can also visualize that in Turbot Guardrails. And so here we'll see that Bob came into that environment. I updated the label to demo equals true, and you can see that diff history there. Now, if we wanted to change the table itself, so this is where you might have very specific columns that you want to enforce. Maybe you want to grab all the data that's in GCP for this particular resource type. You can also do that. I had just selected a few columns to add, but there are a number of them that you can add that are coming right from GCP itself. And so here, if I wanted to grab some other columns, have some here I could just paste in. And so an example, if I wanted to bring in the versioning configuration, whether or not it's enabled or not, I can also bring that information in. If I wanted to create my own custom one, so in this case, I want to create a custom field that's not coming from GCP, it's coming from Turbot Guardrails. I'm creating one here called application ID or app ID. And so I can update this configuration. And now once that's updated, if I go back into ServiceNow, I can then start adding those fields into my form. So if I hit refresh and go to columns, if I want to go to versioning enabled, and then also the application ID, I can hit apply. And so versioning is set up as a Boolean, and that's why there's that indicator there. Also have my application ID here that right now there's no data because within Turbot I have not added what's the values that are going to feed into these columns. And so that's in another policy here. So here I have my bucket name, the project ID, the region, the tags. This is where it's getting the information from in the Turbot Guardrails CMDB. We can then add additional information. So here I can then pull in, where is that versioning enabled coming from? Well, that's also coming from the resource data that's already in Turbot. And then I'm bringing in that app ID is actually part of the tags map against that resource. So I'm going to specifically pull in the application ID that's along with the rest of the labels, and I'm going to elevate that into its own column and own value in the ServiceNow CMDB. And so if I go update that here, and then I'm going to go back into ServiceNow. So we give it a second here, I'll refresh, and then we'll start to see the versioning being updated and the application ID field. Yep, and we can see that this particular GCP bucket number 1 has versioning enabled. We also have the application ID that's coming from these tags, but now being elevated as its own column within, just to show an example of what you can do. Now, you don't have to use Boolean. I could have done a string and that would have came in as true, false, just showing you that you can use different types of data types from ServiceNow as you're syncing in data. Now, there's a ton of possibilities and a lot that you can do with Turbot Guardrails. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at turbot.com/start. Thank you.